Hello, my friends. This is Andy over at Falco Canine Academy. I'm glad that I got to see the Los Angeles Chargers score that touchdown. Antonio Gates just broke the record for tight ends. The catch. I forget what it was, 100 and something catches. Touchdown catches. And so I apologize for all of you that are in the middle of watching either one of the LA Rams or LA Chargers games or wherever you're watching football. But I had gotten another request to get my opinion on this video of this police dog biting the suspect in San Diego. And this happens often, right? Because I'm in the business, I get messages from people regarding all kinds of stuff in regard to not only police dogs that are biting suspects on camera, but also detection dogs and that kind of stuff. So it just hit me today that I probably should do some type of broadcast because of one of the streams that I was in regard to this particular video, and it's long overdue. It's time that, and I've talked about them before, but probably not quite to this extent. So this Facebook Live is syndicating out to other Facebook pages. So whether you're watching us in one of the bed bug ones or our train the dog trainer Facebook pages or what have you, welcome. I'm glad that you're here. If you want to come on live, there is a link in the description that it starts with https://blive.tv broadcasts, and then at the end it says guest. You can click on that if you have a camera and mic on your computer or even on your phone. I believe you can join us live. And so I'm not 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure you can. But anyway, you can come on and you can talk about it if you want to let off some steam or whatever. If you don't agree with anything I say, of course, you're more than welcome to come on. So you just use that link. You just have to make sure that you have a camera and a mic that are connected. And then you're going to have to close the Facebook page that you're watching this on, or else we'll get a very irritating echo. All right, so we're going to be talking about this particular video. I do want to also bring your attention to another link that is in the description, and that is the one that starts with training your dog with love and respect. And you click on that link and you can get the report that kind of goes along with this particular talk we're going to have, because it has to do with obedience, really, in the end. And we're going to cover all of this stuff. But you can get that free report just by putting in your name and email address, and then I will send that to you for free. And that's it. There's nothing more that will be asked from you in regard to that particular issue. We may give you an announcement later on about something that we have coming up or something like that in an email. But it is not by any means to bug you or bother you. All right. So first of all, I need to give you this disclaimer, because one of the videos we're going to watch, we want to make sure you understand that the video for some people may be disturbing and may make you a little bit squeamish, but it is a video of a police dog on a suspect's arm, and the handler is having difficulty getting the dog off. So if you have not seen the video before, I want you to know that if you're squeamish or you're a parent and don't want your children watching this, I'm going to give you plenty of notice. I'm going to play it in just for a second. That way you have an idea what it is we're talking about, so I can frame everything that we're going to be speaking about. And of course, I don't want to just simply talk about something that you can't see. So you can either choose not to watch it, or of course you can watch it. That way you know exactly what it is I'm talking about. All right. So, and I already shared this. Yeah, there's actually more to that. Just don't just type in that. There's actually the other part on the end. So let me go ahead and take that off. All right, just one more time. I'm going to show you a video in just a few minutes about about a police dog. It's going to show a police dog biting a suspect on the arm, and the handler cannot get the dog off in a very timely manner. So I just want you to be aware of that. There's blood, and they're screaming and yelling, and it's not going to be fun. So just want to make sure that you are aware of what it is that we're going to be playing. Now you can close your eyes, turn off your sound. Sorry, something went wrong here. I'm back. Hold on. All right, we're having a little trouble sharing our screen here. Hold on. Stand by. Hold on 1 second. This worked before. Hide. I'm going to hide, and then I'm going to try it one more time. All right, let's go ahead and try to get this up to the broadcast. There we go. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and make this solo. Again, if there are any children watching, I just want you to know that as a parent, you may not want them to watch this. It's a police dog biting somebody on the arm. The suspect is handcuffed, and the handler is not able to get the dog off. There's blood, and they're screaming, and then there's a guy, obviously, who's taking the video. He's narrating and asking the cop why he can't get the dog off. All right, so that is what we're going to be watching right now, and then when we're done, I will go ahead and come on back. Oh my gosh, I'm not sure why this is happening, but I'm having a little bit difficult with the technology here. It keeps popping off. There, it's back, making it solo. All right, here we go.
Why can't you call your dog off? Why can't you call him off? Why is this little grip on his arm? You have no control of your dog whatsoever. Are you kidding me? I'm comfortable. You guys got 3 guys versus 1. You can't get the dog on?
Hey, get back now. Right now.
No control of your dog whatsoever.
Hey, shut up and get back.
Excuse me, sir.
All right, so we're going to stop that. So that's the video that I keep getting sent. That's probably, I've been sent that video probably about 5 or 6 times, maybe more, maybe 10 that I'm actually aware of. There's other times that I get stuff that I'm not even aware. And so, hey, Paul Byer. And so let's first say this, and I want to make sure that this is understood, because I'm gonna talk about some things here in a minute, and talk about how people in law enforcement refer to me in some cases, because I do not mind speaking out about certain issues, and I'm there to defend cops when they need to be defended. But here, I want to make sure that this is understood first, and that is most police officers and handlers are doing the right thing all the time. All right, what's the word I'm looking for? They are under an extreme. They're in an extremely difficult situation. Has been a police officer several years, and Paul Byer also being a police officer for several years. Every day that we go out there, we're handling anywhere from maybe 20, at the least 25 calls a day, to sometimes 50 calls a day. And most police officers go many, many years handling that many calls a day without a complaint, without purposely hurting somebody out of anger or out of frustration. Do we get frustrated? Have I ever been frustrated on the job? Absolutely. Have I ever maybe gave an extra noogie? Absolutely, I have. Have I put handcuffs on just a little bit too tight? Yes, I have. But we're dealing with a different type of person in many cases, but that's not our job. Our job is not to punish people. It is not to make sure that the dog stays on longer than necessary. No, most police officers, most dog handlers are not in any way, shape, or form out of control, mean, nasty people, because there's thousands and thousands and thousands of police officers on our planet, and we see 1 or 2 incidents every couple months at the most. That is a pretty good percentage, I think, and we're doing a really good job. Now, with that, are there handlers and dogs and police officers that do the wrong thing? Yes. We do have an issue in relationship to police dogs that I want to make sure is clear, and I want to make sure and talk about it, because I do have a significant number of attorneys who call me to ask for my opinion on police dog related incidents, and when they ask me, I tell them. And that is where many police officers get upset at me, because I will actually, I will say whether the officer was wrong or whether it was right. And that I do that. I've done that since I was a police officer, and I've done that when I retired, and I'm going to continue to do it, because now it's just, don't ask me. If you don't want to know my opinion, then don't ask me, and don't put me in that position. And I'm going to tell you that, that there was a time as a owner of a business that was catering to law enforcement where I shied away from giving that opinion. And in one case in particular in LA County, and I can't remember the exact city, or else I would actually mention the city, but a canine handler was in pursuit or joined a pursuit, one of the two, when the female suspect exited the vehicle and ran. The handler was in another agency's jurisdiction. So he went from one city and he actually chased the suspect into another city to where he was the only officer from that city in the pursuit, and other police officers and maybe other county people were there in their jurisdiction. The handler was the only one from his city in that particular situation. He sends his dog. The dog chases the woman into the field and takes her down and is biting her arm, right? And he can't get the dog. He gets to the dog and the suspect, and he can't get the dog to let go. He's trying everything. He's grabbing the dog by the testicles. He's grabbing the dog by the flank, which is the skin between the back leg and the stomach, and he's pulling on that. The dog will not let go. He asked one of the other police officers for a taser because he forgot his taser inside of his car because he wants to tase the dog so the dog will let go. A taser is a very strong tool that is electricity that is really not meant for getting a dog to let go. It can actually backfire, by the way, but nobody has one. And somebody has to run back to the car, and the dog is still on this woman, and they can't get the dog off. Well, long story short, they called me as I was the owner of Falco Canine Academy, still am today, and asked me for my opinion in regard to that case and wanted me to testify as a expert witness. And I said no, because I was afraid it was going to affect my contracts with law enforcement. And that it bothered me. It bothers me to this day that I did not take that case. I told the attorney who called me my feelings and that what he needed to hear, but I was not willing to get on the stand and testify. Thanks, Paul. Always good to listen. Always good to see you. I almost get good to listen to you because I never hear you, but I do see you. Take care of the horses and the newfies. All right, we'll take care of the dogs and the horses, which are almost the same. All right. April, being truthful is just the right thing to do. Thank you, April. All right. So, it bothered me. Right. And so from that point on, I said, if I get another call, I can't not do the right thing just because it'll affect my business. And I made a choice that if it's going to cause me to lose all my law enforcement contracts, I'm going to do it. It's I make my living by it, but I can also do other things. I don't have to do that business, right? And I can tell you that after that point, I got asked a couple more times. I did take them, and the officers were clearly wrong in the cases that I was involved in, and I did lose business. And I had police departments decide not to renew contracts with me because I did take on cases where it was very clear, not that it was a question, not that the average person could look at the video that I said, hey, find it, canine detection, which his name was Chris. Don't tell anybody. There were very clear incidents where if I didn't take, sorry about that, watching the football game, the sound just came on. If I didn't take the case, then maybe an unscrupulous expert would then even say, not tell it. There's many out there. I'll tell you that too. There's experts, so-called experts in the dog industry who just simply want to testify against cops, right? You need to have somebody that actually looks at it from a standpoint of right and wrong, right? Did the dog do the right thing? Did the handler do the right thing? Did the dog do the wrong thing? Did the handler do the wrong thing? And maybe even the trainers involved, and maybe the supervision, right? And so I take on cases now, a lot of them in regard to law enforcement stuff. So that's all for full disclosure, and I want to make sure and frame everything properly. Now, the video we just saw, and I'm going to show you one more time, and I'm going to actually stop it at a certain point. Let me bring it actually to the point where. And I just want to describe this because I think that there's some aspects, and this is what I do on the stand, is we will freeze frame videos that I get sent. Oh, man. There we go. All right. So you have the dog at this point right here. All right. I'm going to make it solo so you can see it. So you see the handler pulling up on the dog, And yeah, the dog has a full mouth of his arm, and you already see the tearing and ripping on the suspect's arm. If that's happening already, we have a problem. A dog is not trained to rip and tear somebody's arm. A dog's job is to bite, and you should really only come away with 4 punctures. But if the suspect's fighting, the suspect in this case is clearly handcuffed. He's no longer fighting. I don't know what happened before this video started. You know, the suspect could have been kicking the handlers and or the police officers. He could have been spitting on them. Who knows what was happening? At some point, though, you have to get the dog off. Once the guy's handcuffed, it's over. I don't care what the suspect did to you. I don't care if he called you every name in the book or talked about your mother. I don't care if he kicked you or had a knife or had a gun. Once he's handcuffed and in a submissive position, it does not matter. This is where police officers sometimes I don't know what happened in this case, sometimes can allow their emotions to get the best of them. That is not what's happening here. All right. So that's why I wanted to say that, because in some cases you'll hear officers say, well, before he turned the video, the suspect kicked the police officer in the face and he spit in the other police officer's face and he called the other guy's mother a troll. Right. So right now he's handcuffed. Right now he's in a position that he's no longer a threat, and that means no matter what, the dog needs to be taken off. So that's where we're at right now. And the handler is poorly trained because he's doing something which is actually causing the dog to bite down harder. He's pulling on the dog's collar. He's attempting to do what's called a choke off, and he's attempting to cut off the dog's airway so that the dog will let go. And if I play this video further, I think this is the right spot. If I play this video further, you're going to see that he actually does not have it, because because right there, the dog's paws are on the ground still, and he's not pushing it into the arm. He's pulling, because you can see the extension of the guy's left arm that he's actually pulling. That is really not wise. The dog is actually biting down harder. He is trying to hold on because he feels this tug of war. All of us that have had dogs before, when you play tug of war with your dog, you make the dog bite down harder and fight against you and shake his head. All right, let's play this video a little bit further. And there he lets go again. Do you see the worst thing he could have done right there is he let the dog go, and now the dog bites down even harder. Now he's trying to make an adjustment. So I can't say necessarily the worst thing he's done, but this is not working. There's a poorly trained handler. He doesn't know how to do it. So this is all going to come around, and I'm going to talk about a little bit further. But a poorly trained handler handling this in a very inappropriate way. He's probably panicking. Now he's twisting, and the dog is twisting. All right, so we're going to just go ahead and take that off for right now and bring it on down. And I know that's tough to watch, but it's necessary, because what's happening here is maybe not the handler's fault. All right, and we're going to talk about that in just a second. It definitely is not the dog's fault. The dog is not even close to being anywhere in the frame as far as blame. The dog has been trained to do this. The dog has been encouraged to do this. And now the handler's lack of training is showing in how he's handling the situation. So first of all, let's look at this thing. Fascinating and informative. Thank you, April. All right. So let's look at the next thing I have here on the agenda. So let's first talk about this. So, I already said that one. Stand by. Next one. So let's first talk about what the purpose of a police canine team is. Okay. Before we go into all this, the purpose of a police dog, number one, is their nose, not their teeth. All right. The thing we hear a lot about is that they bite and they take people down and catch them and all this kind of stuff. But their nose, the dog's nose, is so powerful. This video would go on a lot longer, but just know that it is so powerful. It separates odors. It distincts one odor from the next person. So it differentiates each individual by their scent and can do it so well that it will not confuse one person from another person on a track. It will stay on one track of one person and stay on that one track, even though other people pass by, because the nose is so powerful. It searches buildings with its nose the size of like Walmart and reduces the time to search an entire Walmart down to minutes as opposed to hours. It would take a number of law enforcement officers to search the same building. The dog's nose is used to find narcotics in a way that is just unbelievable. It is used to search for lost children and elderly who get lost and confused and can't find. So the nose is the number one thing we have dogs. It turns out that they also have very powerful jaws, sharp teeth, and can be used to protect the police officers when they get into trouble. In other words, get into a fight or are threatened by somebody, the dog can be called out to, sometimes with the dog's presence, as growling, snarling, showing his teeth, and cause a fight to not happen. And in the cases where a fight is happening with a police officer, dog comes and rescues, or the dog is used to search the backyard or a building or the interior of a vehicle to look for somebody that might be hiding. And when they fight him, the dog then bites them. It looks like in this case, the dog was probably used for protection because it's in the middle of the day. It's on the street. So somewhere along the line, this suspect threatened this police officer and the dog was decided had been used. And that's probably, I don't know the circumstances. All I see is the dog is on the bite. Like I said, it could have been anything. The guy could have had a gun for all I know, or a knife. It doesn't matter. And probably the initial use of this dog was perfectly fine, right? The initial use of this dog was probably perfectly fine because it fell under either officer safety, a search, or that's it, officer safety or a search, and the dog was used. All right. So that's the use. That's the purpose of the dog and the dog's job. Now, in this case, is the police dog out of control? Are police dogs on their own out of control? Now, I have seen over the years, and I've been a part of the selection of dogs, both through other vendors of police dogs and, of course, number of dogs on my own, right? And I've been around it at all. I've been with some of the worst trainers on the planet. I've been with some of the best trainers on the planet, and I've seen just about everything over the last 30 years. You can imagine how many dogs that I've seen, and there are some dogs that are very strong, some dogs that are very powerful, and they get put with the wrong handlers who are weak and don't have the ability and are lazy. And again, we'll talk about this later on. And so a dog on its own, is it out of control? No, because I've seen some really powerful dogs be completely under control. I've seen some very aggressive, nasty dogs be completely under control. I've seen some very soft, tender dogs that may not be police dogs and should have not been police dogs become nasty, vicious, fearful dogs in the hands of the wrong handler. So it is not the dog, because the dog is often influenced by who they're with and the trainer that is training the handler who the dog is with. All right. So the dogs rarely, right? If they are truly out of control and just beasts, the likelihood of them being a police dog is not very high. All right. So no, the dogs are not out of control. On occasion, you may get one that just for some reason started out to be a pretty good dog and then gets so bad that it's just now broken. That does happen, but it's just on a rare case. Anybody that's on as a dog trainer or something, come to Falco Canine Academy's Facebook page and you can comment there. That's only the comments I can see. And I'm syndicating out to, I think, 10 other Facebook pages right now. So if you're commenting on other Facebook pages right now, I cannot see that until I sign off and then go visit all those other pages. And so if you want to comment and you want me to see it, or you want to come on camera, feel free to do so. And go ahead and come to Falco Canine Academy's Facebook page. When there's a poorly trained handler, is it the handler who is responsible, or is it the person who trained the handler? It's like you read my agenda there, April. All right, so here's the next one. Are police dog handlers out of control? Sometimes yes, sometimes yes. And how this happens in many cases is they're raised essentially as police officers, as handlers, alongside other handlers who have been raised and trained by other canine handlers, that this is just simply the way we do it. We find dogs that are hard and nasty. We make them harder and nasty, and we don't really care whether they let go or not. Because what we end up doing in the end is we grab the dogs by the testicles and the flank, and we can get them off. We can stick a stick. I've seen handlers have to stick a stick down a dog's throat in order to get them off. I've seen them, again, grab the dog by the testicles. I've seen them take the electronic collar and put it around the dog's penis and testicles and turn it to 10 and get the dog off. I've seen tasers, like we said before, where they've tased the dog to get the dog off. And handlers do think that is necessary. They think that is just what we do. And it gets passed down from handler to handler. So this handler, and I know San Diego has had a pretty good history of really good training, that kind of stuff. For whatever reason, he is in a situation here where he was poorly trained, because I can tell, and I get in the stand, I do this all the time. The judge will say, well, how do you know? I can see. If he was properly trained, he would know how to get that dog off in the situation that he's in right now. He would have been trained. He would have had to go on through the situation. I'm going to show you a video of our training in the end. I'm going to save it till the end because it's actually fairly long. I'm going to show you it's called 24 Hours at Falco Canine Academy, where we do all of the stuff that you're going to see that this handler needed in his training in order to know how to handle, I'm pointing at the video, which is on the other screen over here, how to handle this very situation when you got 2 police officers are holding your legs, when you have people taking video of you, when you have people standing over you going, how come you can't get your dog off? How come you can't get your dog off? I do that in our training and have done that. But because many police officers don't want me to train them now because I put them through that, I don't see as many handlers as I used to, because they know that I will expect them to get their dog off when they're in a challenging situation. I will expect them to get their dog off when the dog has been hit and punched and all the stuff that happens to a police dog. And I want them to have their control over their dog in this kind of situation. If you've not been trained in this kind of situation, this is what happens, what we're seeing on this video, where he can't get the dog off, right? So is it this handler's fault? Maybe not. Is he out of control? Possibly, but maybe not from his own volition, right? It's just how it's the, gosh, I lost the word. I just had it in my head. It's the essence of the department canine team at this very moment. Has it always been that way? Probably not, because again, I've known some San Diego handlers that are fantastic. I know San Diego sheriff's officers who have been trained by me who are fantastic. I'm not sure why this handler is doing this. Again, I don't know what the temperature of that particular department has been at this time, but I can see by this video that he's having difficulty with the situation, mostly because he's not been trained properly. All right. So I hope that makes sense, and I hope I didn't go off the rails too far. So is the trainers, so you have handlers are the ones who actually are matched with the dog and are we call them handlers. We don't call them trainers, and I can get confusing, but they're the handlers. The trainers is the person who trains the team, selects the dog, trains the human being with the dog. Those are called the trainers, the canine trainers. And are they out of control? And sometimes, and this is where we get into some very, wavy waters here, where I'm going to have people, well, you're in the business, you're just simply bad-mouthing other trainers. If anybody knows me, they know that I am not in the business of bad-mouthing other trainers. I do bad-mouth bad training and say, well, that's not really good training. But I'm not going to say that, one particular person over another is completely horrible. It's all about the grandma's roast. Yes, I have no idea what that means. I know April will get it. Hello, Annie. April has told me lots about you. Okay. Not sure what grandma's roast has anything to do with it. Hey, Roy, glad to have you here. So trainers. Oh my gosh. So I know that when we get to this situation with a handler and a dog, that it comes to quite often either the trainer isn't skilled enough to handle this particular dog and doesn't know what to do with this handler who's matched with this dog. I have this color system that I give dogs and handlers. It's red, blue, and green, right? Red is obviously high energy, bite, snarly, and handlers that are like, just angry men who have a dog that's angry, and you put 2 reds together and it often does not end well. Have I seen that? Oh my gosh, yes. Then you have your blues, which is right in the middle. They're really good handlers, really good dogs. You match those, you have perfection nearly. Then you have green. You have brand new dogs who know nothing, and green handlers who have nothing, no training whatsoever, and those are green. Now, you can have different configurations, right? A red handler with a blue dog will do pretty good, because no matter how nasty he is, he can't quite get that dog to that red point, because the dog just is not a red dog. He's not going to get there, right? You put a red handler with a green dog and you'll probably destroy the dog. The handler's too strong, too overwhelming, and a dog that's green cannot develop and become a blue dog. All right. So it's kind of complicated, but I'm just telling you that this is kind of what you get. So a trainer needs to figure out, right, what do I got going on here? And when he selects a dog, he needs to make sure that he has a dog that goes with the right handler, and he needs to have this good combination. So here in this case, it appears to me, not, again, knowing this handler, I do not know this handler, but I do see that this dog is overpowering him. The dog is saying, screw you. I'm really enjoying what I'm doing here. The dog may even be in another place, another planet in his brain, because he's so overwhelmed with everything that's happening here. The dog could be fearful. The dog could be, rank. And I don't know, but all I know is the handler is too weak to handle the situation, either too weak-minded, too weak-hearted, or too weak in his training and can't get the dog out. It's one of those things, right? The dog is simply gone to another place, right? He's saying, I'm going to shut this guy out because he doesn't matter. The handler doesn't matter. You want to always matter to your dog, right? No matter what. You can have a dog. Again, I'm telling you, those of you that are in the business go, well, I've had a pretty hard. I'm telling you, I have seen some of the hardest, nastiest Belgian Malinois, Dutch Shepherds, that handlers have come to me and said, my dog, I've had this dog for 3 years. He's never outed. There's no trainer that can get this dog to out. And within about 30 minutes of either in studying what's going on with this dog and watching this dog, we got the dog to out. To the dismay of the handler. The handler nearly passed out when we had this dog in Florida, Orlando, Florida, who the handler, and I've told the story before, he believed there's nobody, you guys, you know, whatever. Like, he was walking around like, you guys can't get my dog to let go. And he was kind of proud of the fact that his dog did not let go of people when he bit him, that the dog actually had to be knocked out. In other words, cutting the dog's airway off so the dog felt what he's trying to do here, and he can't do it, right? It's not that hard to get a dog to lose consciousness and get him off the bite. So this handler was proud of the fact that he had to knock his dog out in order to get him off. We had the dog out within about 30 minutes, most of that just being a discussion between me and another trainer of what we were going to do to address this thing. He said out, the dog let go, the handler almost fell over, and we had to remind him to praise his dog. He was frozen, right? So I can have any trainer on here come here and say, well, you never seen. Yes, I have. Dog and Beetle reminds me of my Italian dad, who, when he sees red, is unaware of anything at all around him. Right. But, right, you need to have the power of obedience, the power of respect, the dog's respect, of leadership in a dog to not let him get there, right? The dog always has to be aware. Right. And I'm telling you, I've been in SWAT deployments. I've had to shoot at people shooting at me. And we've had dogs in those situations. Again, I want to tell you that I'm not speaking from something that I do not know. And I have seen dogs in a place where they have ripped open the guy's chest open, where you can see the insides of his chest. But because of the way they fell and the way that everything happened, and we still got the dog to let go. Right. And this is a dog of very powerful proportions. We use flashbangs and all the other stuff at the same time. And those are some of the things that makes a dog kind of go off the map for a second, but you need to be able to bring the dog back, or you have to do it right and cut the airway off of the dog so that he'll pass out for a second so you can get him to let go. Either one, you have to be able to have control. All right. So the trainers, back to the trainers. So you have trainers that are don't have the ability, don't have the training, don't have the knowledge of how to handle anything that doesn't fall out of their narrow experience and training. When you get a dog that's kind of outside, then they've lost control. Trainers are out of control. They've lost control, right? Some handlers, and I've been around trainers, one here locally who's had a number of dogs. I've seen them give a dog completely out of control to a city where they had no prior experience. The dog, I was watching the dog. He was having trouble getting the dog to let go. He asked me to go get him a cattle prod so he can get the dog to let go. He talked those people into taking that dog. The dog that the trainer, who had at 40 years, I think at the time, who had asked me to go get a cattle prod, and they had to use a cattle prod to get the dog off himself. The dog was attached to the trainer on a bite sleeve. He had to use a cattle prod to get the dog off because he could not get the dog to release because there was nobody there strong enough, and he had sold that to a department. So yes, the trainers can be out of control, and in some cases they are. All right, so there you go. I came out and said it, and I've seen it, and so don't tell me what I don't see. All right, so what should the handler and police dog do when a suspect complies or is handcuffed? He gets the dog to let go. It is simply obedience, right? This all looks like this is special, right? That's one of the things about the police dog training and law enforcement, that kind of stuff. Even when I got started into it as a young handler in my 20s, 23 or 24, when I got my dog, is that I thought, well, it's different than pet training. It's different than any other kind of dog training. You don't know. This is different. No, it's all the same. It's obedience. The dog has been trained to bite. The dog is then trained to let go. Then the dog is then trained to come to a heel. The dog is then trained to go into the car. It's all training. It's all obedience. The dog biting is not, when we choose a police dog, we have trained the dog to bite. The bite is on command. Now, in the action of the fight, things can sometimes change, where now the dog is protecting himself. The dog has either gone into maybe fear or protection. And when you get into that, then you get this difficulty to get the dog off. And so again, if a dog gets to that point where his brain has shut down, now you need to know that immediately and get the dog off when you're in that situation, right? And so again, I'm going to show you a video of our training it's going to make this a lot more clear. It's just we have to set the stage for you to understand what it is you're about to see when we talk about our training. All right, so the dog, as soon as the guy's handcuffed, right? As soon as the guy's handcuffed, you tell the dog, out. The dog should let go. You should take the dog back to the thing. And again, I have handlers all over the planet. I can hear them say, well, you don't know. Yeah, I do. You say, let go. You say, out. You say, tell the dog to let go. You're going to see me hitting a dog with everything on the planet, and then the handler has to come in and get the dog off. I do my best to get the dog to the place where he shuts down, and I want the handler to get the dog off. All right. So I'm not sure if that's actually, it shows me doing that. I'm not sure at what point the handler comes in and gets the dog off. But as long as the suspect's still fighting, that's me fighting the dog, right? This dog has the guy on, this guy's on the ground in handcuffs. It takes a while to get the guy in handcuffs. How long has that dog been on the bite, right? We've seen it since after the handcuffs have been put on, the dog's still on the bite, right? As soon as the handcuffs go on, and the suspect's been patted down, this guy is no shirt. He only has a little bit of shorts on, right? We know the guy is safe. Get the dog off the bite. All right. Whew. Hey guys, Ann is just reporting the news. Hey guys, Andy is just reporting the news. Thank you. Right. All right. So what's next here? So we have are police dogs governed by any official or governmental? This is actually the question that came up in the discussion that I was having earlier that caused me to want to broadcast this thing. And I'm sorry if I'm getting on some tangents here, but I just want to make sure that I'm trying to cover all the bases that need to be covered, because I get asked this question so often. But is there a governing agency? Like, is there anybody that this video goes to and they get penalized? Or, like the NFL obviously has, the home office, right? NHL has a home office in Toronto. Every agency, every organization has no. The only people that are in charge is the police officers themselves. The supervision, which is probably a former canine handler who actually told the handler what to do or what not to do, is the one who says, well, he obviously, again, it's always what happened prior to the camera going on. Well, if he kicked you on the chest, no wonder the dog didn't let go and he deserved it. Or it's okay, right? This is how things continue to happen. There is no organization that really oversees canine per se. Now, you have police officer standards of training for the state of California, who kind of will take a look at some stuff. You have the DA's office, who looks at police officers who are out of control and that kind of stuff. So on the basis of use of force, we have that, right? So if there's a use of force issue, then that part of it will go up, and they'll say, it looks like this went on a little bit too long. And so that's probably what will end up happening, is that this use of force was wrong, but there's really no governing agency over the use of the canine. There's really no body. You have the United States Police Canine Association. You're saying, well, that sounds like it's legit. It's just another business called the United States Police Canine Association that's in the business of charging its members to be members, and then they certify. But it's not a governing body. It's not a governmental agency. It is a business called the United States Police Canine Association that's owned by a number of members, but it's not governed by the United States of America. It's the name of the company is called United States Police Canine Association. You do have Post that has canine standards. California Post does have police canine standards, but they're voluntary. They're not mandatory. They're voluntary standards. No, a police dog and a police handler can actually work for a police department, and it does not have to fall within the standards set by California Post, because they're voluntary. Strange, isn't it? Now, Utah has mandatory, and I think Connecticut has mandatory, but California has voluntary. But again, it's really, there's not one organization throughout the United States that governs all of the police canines and looks at each one of these incidents and says, we got to do a better job, or goes to the training sites to make sure that everything's being done right. Because the reason why most canine handlers don't get along, most canine trainers don't get along. Each canine trainer badmouths the other canine trainer, and that's why I kind of laughed when I had that thing come up that says, "Is the canine trainers out of control?" And again, I know that many people would say, "Well, you're just badmouthing another trainer." I'm just telling you that there's some that shouldn't be trainers. There's some that don't have the skills. There's some that should stick to pet dog training and not police dog training, and that's just the truth. That's just the way that it is. And then you got the lazy ones who know what it is they can do, but they're just too lazy to take care of it. They said, it's okay. He's only going to be on the job a couple more years and then he's out. And let's let him go. Okay, whatever. And that's the kind of thing. But there is no governmental agency that oversees all the canines. There isn't. Where does the problem stem from? So the problem stems from mostly the problem stems from just that There's a lot of trainers, a lot of handlers who don't believe obedience is necessary. That's probably most of where it stems from. They think the harder the dog hits, the harder the dog bites, and the harder it is to get him off. That's all good, right? That is a belief system that has been perpetuated throughout law enforcement for years. Before I was even a handler, back in the 70s, it was that the harder, the stronger, the harder they bite, the harder it is to get them to let go, the better. And they kind of laugh at it, right? We've laughed at it. I laughed at it as a handler, like, oh, you couldn't get your dog off, right? Or you couldn't call your dog off, right? And I go, you know, every time we come to annual certification, you can never call your dog off. They have to take their dog into the parking lot and beat him, or use the pinch collar and give him over and over and over and over corrections in order to get the dog to a point in his brain where he's kind of mush. Then they do the call off and the dog calls off, and then they go back for a year. The dog never has to call off ever again until the next year, right? And that is looked at as kind of funny. Kind of like, well, that's the way it's supposed to be. Dogs are supposed to be hard to call off. They're supposed to be so difficult to get them to let go that makes them better. No, actually, it's not. And I've been able to prove that over and over again, that just because a dog is strong and hard and confident and bites hard does not mean that it's okay that they don't let go. It actually can be done to where you can actually create a stronger dog that actually lets go on command, that actually calls off on command. You can have it both ways. You can have a strong, hard, biting, strong dog that is also obedient. It is possible. You just can't be lazy. And you have to make sure that the dog is with the right handler who's willing to put in the time that it takes to do that with a dog that has that strength and that power. That is what's important. Are there any departmental standards? Sometimes they do have a department policy. Most have department policy that says, you know, your dog's going to call off. Your dog's got to let go when he's told to let go. Your dog has to have obedience, but it is often fudged. I have seen it. I've been a part of it. I've seen handlers go to certification and there's no way that they're going to certify. And somehow in the end of the day, they certify because they do it over and over again until the dog gets so tired that he has to call off or that he has to let go. It is not realistic. What many handlers liked and didn't like about my training is that I would ask them to certify on any day without their knowledge that it was coming up. So it didn't have to be a year before we would certify. And they, again, most of my handlers that work for me like that. They like the fact that I would say, okay, you know what, today we're going to certify. They go, like, what? You didn't tell us we were going to certify. I said, today's certification day. And said, and you're not going to know what it is we're going to do. And so they would meet somewhere, and all of a sudden they'd say, okay, what I want you to do is just drive down this road. When you see something, I want you to act. And then somebody would come speeding past them in what would be the decoy vehicle. The suspect would then run. The handlers would know that that's the one they're supposed to chase. The lights would go on. We used to do this at Tustin Air Force Base before it became a shopping center. We would do this at Anaheim Stadium parking lot. We would do this at a number of different places, the fire department training center, and they would give chase, and then the guy would get out and run. They would then send the dog. The suspect would then go, I give up, and they would have to call their dog, and this would be a scenario that they didn't know was coming. Most certifications, they know weeks ahead of time. Okay, in November, on the second Thursday, we're going to certify. Now, I want to make sure you're all prepared, so make sure and get ready, right? So from now until then, they would be practicing often to try to get their dogs to work on that Thursday. So when did they train? They trained on Thursdays because the dogs know the day of the week. They know what day it is. Michelle, she's been part of our Saturday training. She knows that the dogs know when Saturday is. They know when they're being driven to the field for dog training, right? So the dogs will begin to know what's up. Right? They know that they have to perform on this particular day at this particular location. So that's what they would prepare for. So it's false in the sense that you think you're actually certifying a dog for realistic situations, when in fact they're actually certifying in a training situation, which is completely different. All right. So that's why I would say, okay, right now we're certifying. I would even call them, and on days that weren't training days, I would say, hey, why don't you meet me? Because I was a police officer, obviously, with Anaheim. I would say, meet me. It's 3:00 in the morning. We're going to go through certification right now. And they would go, wait a minute. Are you sure? And I'd say, yeah, I contact your supervisor, and we're going to go through certification at 3:00 in the morning in La Palma Park. And we would do certification. And they would be going, all right. And they began to get used to it. If you have this to be your thing that you do, and they're ready for, and they just feel like that's normal. I had hardly any handlers that I trained with over the years that I trained them, blink an eye. Now, when we took over training for some police departments in the beginning, they were going, wait, we've never done this before. I took over the training for a very large gosh, what's the word I can use to not give it away? I think I'm going to give it away anyway. It's a place where people go and it's very happy, and they have dogs there, detection dogs. And I went there. They had contracted with me, and the very first day I said, okay, I need to find out where all the dogs are. I'm going to go, I'll be back. I'm going to go place some hides, and then I'm going to come back and do some training. They go, hey, wait a minute. And they go, what are you going to do? I said, I'm going to go play some hides, and I'll come back and get you. And then one at a time you go through the scenario. I said, well, aren't we going to come with you? And I said, no. And they said, well, we've never done a search. And we're talking about handlers that have been on the team for 4 and 5 years. And they're telling me now, at this time when I said I'm going to leave, they said, we've never done a search where we didn't know where the fines were. We've never not known. I said, you've never not known where the fines are in a detection dog search. And no, we've never. And these are bomb dogs that were protecting this happy place on the planet, and they've never done the search that way. How ridiculous is that, right? I want to make sure that in the middle of the night, that when I say, hey, meet me over here, we're going to do something, that you're ready to go. All right. I can't make it any more realistic than that. And so that's certification. So good question, Michelle, by the way. Thank you for that. All right. Hold on. Our police dog, no. Where does this problem stem from? I just told you that. Mostly from an arcane way of thinking that is kept alive by lazy and untrained trainers and handlers. That is really the truth. This is mostly from an arcane way of thinking that a hard, nasty dog that does not let go is the way to go. It has been around for years, and I've been a part of it. I was a part of it when I started. It wasn't until later on that I go, you know what? This is no way, because what if the dog bites the wrong person? We can't get him off, which has happened. Remember the story I told you at the beginning when the dog was on that girl that was a suspect? She was only wanted for a traffic violation. She was running because she had a warrant out for arrest for speeding, 10 or 15 miles over the speed limit, and they could not get the dog off for a good 10, 15 minutes. Right. And so is that a suspect that we should be sending a dog? No, the dog is meant for violent, dangerous suspects. And then obedience is looked at as a weakness or weakness of a dog's motivations. And I, again, have been a part of many training groups and gone to other states where I've trained dogs. And I said, so what does your obedience look like? Well, we don't do obedience. All we do is bite work. Well, what about heeling, sitting, downing, stopping, calling it out? No, if we do that, then the dogs won't perform, and it weakens the bite, and it just weakens the dogs. The motivation for the dogs to work is lessened because we do obedience. And no, it makes it stronger. If you do it right, it makes it stronger. It doesn't make it weaker. It's just craziness. It is untrained, lazy bastards. All right, so the last thing, what can be done? Well, what can be done is you can have an organization, like the Anaheim Friends of the Anaheim Police Canine Unit, which I developed way back in the day. Was not a handler. We brought in people like Cheryl Timmons and others, and Tim Alcott, I'm sorry. And the three of us started this group called the Friends of the Anaheim Police Canine Unit, and they were at training every day. And Tim and Cheryl too wanted to make sure to see that our dogs let go when we told them to let go, that they called off when we told them to call off, that we did our obedience, and they were there for everything. They observed and said, and Tim would come to me every so often and goes, you know what? I see that blah, blah, blah is having trouble. Is there anything that we're going to do about that? He's a citizen within our city. He doesn't work for the police department. He was a very caring, loving person who loved canines, loved the work of canines. And he was there to make sure, as one of his jobs, to make sure that I was held accountable, because I was the trainer of the canine unit at the time. I held accountable for my handlers that I was training. And that is one thing that we can do about it. In issues like this, you can speak out and say, why did that dog not let go, right? I haven't heard really much. They probably settled it, which is good, which I would tell them to do. They should have, hopefully they gave this guy a check while he was in the cell and said, hey, I want you to sign this waiver that you're not going to sue us. Here's $15,000. And that way we don't have to go to court. And you get money right away. You don't have to pay it to an attorney, right? That's what they should have done. And that is what's done quite often. And so maybe that's what happened. I don't know. But as far as what can be done, you can begin to ask. You can go to your department, if they have a canine unit, and say, hey, can I come to training one of these days? Or when they're at a demo, hey, can you do a call off? Can you get your dog to let go and, want to see it, and begin to put pressure that these things need to be seen. We need to know. I invited with the Friends of the Anaheim Police Canine Unit, I made sure that our citizens at Anaheim could come to any one of our trainings. I didn't mind if anybody came to the training at Falco Canine Academy. I remember at the other place I used to train at that was right off the 10 freeway is that anytime somebody stopped in the shoulder there on the 10 freeway, all training stopped. Nothing would happen because they were afraid that somebody was going to videotape us doing nothing and not being able to get dogs off of bites. It's a true story. When somebody would park on the shoulder of the freeway, training would stop. Or we would move to another place of the campus that they could not see us from the freeway. True story. All right. So I would say just get involved and ask, hey, can we see the dogs work? And can you show us a couple call-offs? Can you show us a couple of things that the dogs can do and demand to see some obedience? All right. So this is going to be a little bit long, and I'm sorry, it's going to add another 8 minutes to the video, but at least you're going to see some of the training that we do over at have done over at Falco. Again, I'm more in the consulting business now. I don't do as much training as I used to, and so I'm gonna probably turn down the sound because you're gonna miss some of the things that are being said and that kind of stuff. But at least I'll be able to kind of narrate some of the stuff that's going on, and I'll be able to talk through it just a little bit and show you why it is that I'm doing some of the stuff that we are doing. All right, so there, and let's make this screen solo. Can't speak. I got all excited. I'm sorry if I went on some rants there. I apologize. So if any of you have anything to say or any questions, feel free to go ahead and put them in there. So the video starts with a tracking. So this is a handler with his dog. You see the dog's nose is on the ground. He's actually tracking the ground. The dog's, again, dog's noses are so powerful. Let me go ahead and get rid of this. Sorry about that. The dog's nose is so powerful. The dog can follow the crushed foliage and the cells that fall off your body, and all the other, the materials, the dandruff that falls out of your shirt from your armpits falls onto the ground, your hair follicles, detergent flakes that fall off of your clothing that are microscopic, all that falls down to create your fingerprint, your scent fingerprint. And so this very first thing you're seeing here, and now that I've talked about it so much, I might as well back it up a little bit so you can see. Oops. I'm going to turn it down just a little bit. So you see the dog smell on the ground. He's actually at the end of the track as a toy. The dog finds his toy. So here is where we're training the out. So do you see the configuration there? You see my right hand holding a leash. This is a dog that's in basic training. And right off the bat, we're teaching this dog to let go. You can see that right off the bat, we don't allow, even from the beginning, the dog to not let go on command. We go right from the beginning to train the dog to let go. I have a leash. I correct the dog when he's commanded to let go. The dog is commanded to let go. I have a camera on the bill of my hat. It's not really a good video, but you can see on a little picture-in-picture, you're going to see the face of the dog. So don't let that distract you. All right. Now the dog's commanded to rebite. So the reward is the dog rebiting. Now watch how the dog lets go now. Didn't have to give a correction the second time. So right off the bat, we're training the dog good, solid. The dog gets to carry the sleeve away as a reward. This dog, I got to tell you, this dog hated to let go. And this is where I go back. This is a dog, a Belgian Malinois, who did not want to let go. Let me just come back to my screen for just a second. This dog, I'm going to look in the camera. This dog did not want to let go. He hated letting go. This is how I know that it doesn't matter what dog you have. I don't care. I don't care what's happening. I don't care if there's gunfire going on, going off. This dog is one of those dogs. This dog did not want to let go. And you're going to see we're training this dog to let go. We did not give up on this dog. The dog had a bunch of other really good traits, right? His one thing is that he hated to let go. All right. So just wanted to set the stage. Oops. Sorry about that. You don't want to see my ugly mug. All right. So right off the bat here, we are training the dog to let go. And you're going to see after I let go of the sleeve, he actually comes to bite me. Now he's supposed to sit. Give the dog the bite. Watch when I let go of the sleeve. After this. Watch. He lets go right away. He's going to go bite me. Same dog. Look how he let go on that one. Perfect. Now watch this one. Oh, sorry. That was a different video. See, these are all simple. I made this video years and years ago, but this is all dogs we're training to let go. That is what the dog on command has to let go. And see how happy we are? We're so happy. You'll see me clapping here in a minute. We're so happy that we're making a difference in this dog. This dog did not want to let go. See, we're so ecstatic about this dog. There's a pit bull that's just a home protection dog doing the same stuff. We change decoys. Quite often, dogs have a different reaction to female decoys, and they often fall easier. This is a different one. She stood up actually on this one. So here's where we get the dog to let go. This is called a choke off. That's how fast a dog should be able to get off on a choke off. Did you see that? Let me show that again. Let me just make sure you saw that. So do you remember where? Hold on. So let me just come back to this camera again. So sorry. So do you remember in the video how he was trying to choke the dog off and he couldn't get him to let go? This is what's supposed to look like. When the moment this handler, this is a dog that does not want to let go. This Belgian Malinois that you're looking at right now. I won't tell you what police department, doesn't matter. This dog was one of those dogs, right? But you can see I'm training the handler how to get the dog off quickly by grabbing the collar. We do both. We call the dog off verbally, and then we take the dog off strong. There are times where we kind of do it sloppy so the dog will stay on a little bit, but that's in the beginning stages to create the bite. And that's different. When we're building a dog's strength and power and that kind of stuff, we will do those things, but when they need to get the dog off, it's either verbally or physically, and it has to happen fast. So here, I want you to watch the video again. This is the handler going hands-on, getting the dog off very quickly. As soon as I go back to broadcast here. There we go. All right, here we go. So he's praising the dog. He puts the leash on, and right now he grabs the dog. Now, off. That's how long it should take. Now we have a second suspect coming out from another tree. He's trying to get the dog focused. Again, this is to make it as hectic and crazy as possible. Obedience. What are we doing right here? Obedience. Dog sit, stay. Handler walks off. For some reason, I'm tossing her a sleeve. And, oh, they're doing obedience. See, they have to do obedience around a decoy, holding a sleeve, throwing the sleeve, shaking hands with the sleeve. Obedience, so important. I'm standing there talking. This dog is another dog that doesn't want to let go. I'm sitting there throwing him the leash. Different decoys, female decoys, choking the dog off, making sure that it happens fast to get him on another suspect. Inside of a building, same thing. Ike, you see that Ike on the back of that officer's, that's a dog that was shot in the line of duty in Palm Springs, saving the police officers' lives because he took the bullets that were intended for the police officers. Female handlers, male decoys, building searches, darkness, low lighting. This is all being done in one day. All the things that you're seeing here is to do it as rapidly as possible. Again, changing up scenarios. Some dogs are stronger than others. This dog came in a little tentative to begin with. There's a pursuit. We talk through each scenario, trying to explain what it is he's supposed to be doing exactly. On the ground, I come in as a police officer trying to get this. You see how we're replicating the scenario you just saw to try to get the dogs as fired up as possible. We're building the dog desire. He chases off a suspect. Get the dogs off equipment fixation. You see the dog's tails are still wagging. The tails are up. Multiple suspects. We want the dog to chase only the one who's still running. We change the person who stops to another person. Debrief. We're talking about what went wrong, what went right, talking about all the different scenarios. There's me using an undercover sleeve, giving a big sleeve. Dog's supposed to come off and get the other sleeve. If you're wondering, I'm not really kicking the dog. I'm using my whole leg on the dog. That's an undercover sleeve. It's a call off with a suspect that's still moving. Most call offs are suspects that the decoy stops. We want the dog to call off somebody who's still moving. Then I tell him to run, and now he doesn't have to call the dog off. This time he gets a bite. So the dog learns that at any time he can be called off, at any time he can be sent. Again, different dog trying to make a choice. You can see how fast that dog is. He's so fast. Out command. From a distance. lot of explanation has to go on so everybody's on the same page so nobody gets hurt. Pat down, dog comes and attacks. This is actually certification here where the dog is then supposed to let go on command, but not bite. Not bite the leg. All right, that was an oops. Again, obedience. Decoys back in the sleeve, walking back and forth. Third-party correction on the dog that needed to understand that when he stops, he's supposed to down on command. He really wasn't supposed to get let go of the leash yet because that dog didn't like me very much. I told you this is a long one. It's 8 minutes long. Here we are to try to get the dog up into a place where he's fighting with the handler, and we want the dog to understand that he's supposed to let go. Again, quick out. Get the suspect back up. Again, we're trying to make this as energetic as possible, and yet the handler still perform and get the dog off. We wear out our decoys from time to time. Back to obedience. Do you see any time at all that we're not using obedience at some point? Call the dog and down him halfway. Call the dog all the way. Come to a heel position. Back to obedience again. Running. That's really not running. That's more like jogging. Talking to the handler. Make sure he understands what he's supposed to be doing. Again, choke off when necessary. Call off again. He should let the dog go a little bit farther, though. Dog calls off, so we send him for the bite. That's kind of civil agitation, except for that he has scratch pants on, which isn't complete civil agitation. You see the dog smell on the ground there? That's a sign of a dog being a little bit confused and not sure about what he's supposed to be doing. So that little sniffing on the ground is a sign that dog just at that moment was confused. Again, this is just so the dogs don't get equipment fixated. I was going to stop the video, but we're going to let it just go ahead. We're almost to the end. It's got a little bit more to go. We want the dog to run over the equipment to come take the bite sleeve. All right. So I hope this was worth your while. I saw a lot of people on there at one point. So I hope it was worth your while to understand that when I see things like that, I see a lot of problems. Handler's not trained properly. He doesn't know how to get his dog off when it's an emergency to get the dog off because the dog did not come off when commanded. He's actually making the dog bite harder by doing what he's doing. The training that you just saw us do over this, it's 24 hours at Falco Canine Academy. We covered it all. We call it outing verbally, outing physically, sending the dog off multiple suspects, calling the dog off, obedience. All these things need to be a part of an everyday training process. And the one thing you can do about it as a concerned citizen is to ask how you can be involved in your police department's canine training. Now, they may shut you down and say, we don't want you there and it's not allowed, that kind of stuff. That means that they don't want you to see what they're doing. It literally means that they don't want you to see what it's doing. We at Anaheim Police Department, we invited the public. We have the public there all the time. We do training in people's backyards. We do neighborhood watch parties with canines doing searches and training. We've done it all, right? We don't care, or we didn't care. I don't work there anymore, but we didn't care, and I'm sure they still don't care what it is. They still give demonstrations in front of hundreds of people. And in many cases, when I did demonstrations, that always involved obedience, calling the dogs off a bite, and outing the dogs off of a bite that was in progress. And you should be able to do the same thing with your canine detail. If you're only seeing bites, that means that they probably can't get their dog to let go, and they're afraid to do it in front of you because he won't do it. The dog won't do it. And I use he because most police dogs are male dogs. All right, let's see what Patty had to say. I couldn't ask earlier, but this happy place you speak of, I thought he who shall not be named had that big gig. Oh yeah. Well, he did. I after a period of time, I was tired of them too. That same place is not the easiest place to work for in regard to getting paid. And so at some point you got to go, okay, this just isn't worth it. It was great having the name on the resume, but at some